Okay, so we're going to look at example 2 here, and it asks me to create a graph and label it appropriately. It gives me all my tasks here, all the way from start to finish. We got A through H here. It tells me how long it takes for each one to start. It takes me how long does it take each one to complete and what the prerequisites are. Okay, this is just exact same problem as what we just did. The only difference here is it did not give me the graph. We're going to have to draw it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start drawing this graph. We're always going to start off, we're going to have to draw this kind of small, make sure I don't run out of room here. We're always going to start off with our start. Okay, it takes obviously 0 time to complete the start. Okay, so we'll go ahead and draw arrows coming out. Okay, so we've got 2 tasks here that there are no prerequisites for. So we're going to show 2 bubbles coming out of the start, and that is going to be for task A and task B. So neither one of these has a prerequisite. Okay, how long does it take to complete start? Obviously no time whatsoever, and so it's going to take me 0 amount of time before I can start A and before I can start B. Okay, now next thing we've got here is we've got task C has a prerequisite of A and B. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and write it up here at the top. This is going to be C. Okay, so prerequisites for those is going to be A. So I'm going to draw an edge coming out of A. I'm going to draw an edge coming out of B. Both of those are prerequisites. It tells me that it takes, going back to A, it takes 1 minute to complete A, so I'm going to put a 1 on its edge. 2 minutes to complete B, so I'm going to put a 2 on this edge. Okay, and again, here we are. We've got something that's waiting on 2 different things to finish. Task A, it took 0 minutes to get to A. It took 1 minute to complete it, so that means it's going to take 1 minute to get to C. But a B, it takes 0 minutes to start, but then 2 minutes to complete it. So again, C is going to be waiting for B to be finished before it can start because it's the slowest one. So before we can start, task C is going to be 2 minutes before we can start C. Okay? All right. So next, we've got D, which only has a prerequisite of B. So we're going to go ahead and draw it down here toward the bottom. This will be task B. Only has a prerequisite of B's coming out like so. Okay, and again, we've already said that it takes 2 minutes to complete B. So if B is the only prerequisite for D, so we're going to be having to take that path. So 0 minutes to start B, it takes 2 minutes to finish. So before we can start task D, we're going to be waiting for 2 minutes. Okay. Next thing on the list up here, we've got E. E only has a prerequisite of C, so we're going to draw it up here at the top by my C. This is E. Okay, so before we can start E, we've got to complete C. It took me 2 minutes to get to C, and then right here it tells me it takes 3 minutes to complete C. So therefore, before I can start E, we will be waiting 5 minutes. Okay. So the next one we've got F. It has a prerequisite of C and D. So we're going to take this and we're going to kind of put this bubble in between them. Maybe right here. We'll call this F. All right. So F is going to be waiting on C and D, and obviously before we can start it is going to be, whichever one takes the longest. Okay. So it takes, again, 3 minutes to complete C, so we're going to put that on that edge. For D, it takes 5 minutes to complete D, so we're going to put that on that edge. All right, so if we look, it took me 2 minutes to get to C and then 3 minutes to finish, so that would be 5 minutes here. And for D, it took me 2 minutes to start D, 5 minutes to finish, so that's going to take 7 minutes. So again, F is going to be waiting 7 minutes, the longer time, before it can start. Even though C finishes first, It's going to be sitting around waiting on D to get there. So before we can start before we can start F, it's going to take us 5 minutes to complete that. Okay. All right. So the next thing we've got is we've got G. G has two prerequisites, D and E. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put G down here. Okay. Prerequisites of D, which is here, and E, which is up here. Okay, we've already noted that it takes 5 minutes to complete D, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there. And E, it takes 5 minutes as well. Okay, so if we go the D route, it took me 2 minutes to get to D, 5 minutes to complete D, so that would be 7 minutes. But the E route, it took me 5 minutes to get to E and another 5 minutes to complete E, so that's 10 minutes. That's going to be the longer time. So that's what we're going to have to write right there for G, because it's going to be 10 minutes before we can finish start G, because we're going to have to wait on E to be completed. Okay. Then my last one here, I've got H. Okay. H has a prerequisite of E and F. Okay, so we're going to have to get a little creative with our lines here. So we're going to put H up here. Okay, so with H, we've got a prerequisite of E here, and we have a prerequisite of F, which we'll just show kind of jumping this line right here. Okay, so E, we already know it takes me 5 minutes to complete E. So we're going to go ahead and put that on that edge. F, it takes 5 minutes also to complete F, so we're going to put that on that edge. Okay, so let's look at the E route. 5 minutes to get to E, 5 minutes to complete E, so that would be 10 minutes. The F route would be 7 minutes before we can start F, another 5 minutes before we can complete F, so that is 12 minutes. So that is the longest time. So it's going to take me 12 minutes before I can start task H. Okay, and then after this, we're finished. Okay, so we're going to draw our finish. Now, anything that does not have an arrow coming out can go to finish. Okay, so in this particular one, we have 2. After we get to H, we would be finished. And after we get to G, we could also be finished. So we got to go back and we've got to look at how long did it take for each one of those tasks to finish. For G, it's 4 minutes. For H, it's also 4 minutes. So again, we're just looking for the longest path here. Okay, H, it took 12 minutes to start to get there, and then 4 minutes to finish, so that would be 16 minutes. G, it took us 10 minutes to get there, and then 4 minutes to finish, so that was 14 minutes. So again, the longest time is going to be 16. Okay, now something I need to point out that we haven't really talked about. Okay, and that is something called the critical path. Now the critical path basically means, how did we get to that 16 minutes? In other words, the critical path is basically the slow path. Okay, so what we would do is actually kind of back this up. I'm going to use a little different color here. We'll make it a little thicker. All right, that'll work. Okay, so we know that the 16 came from the H. All right, the 12 minutes came from the F. The 7 minutes from the F came from the D. The 2 minutes from the D came from the B, and then the B back to the start. So this blue line right here, we'll make it even a little bit thicker. This blue line right here is what's called the critical path, and the critical path meaning basically what path did we have to take to get to this final place where it showed we took 16 minutes to complete this task. So basically the slowest path. Okay, all right, I hope this helps. There are 2 other problems here that I'm going to leave alone. I'm going to allow you to complete them on your own. Let me know if you have any questions.